Welcome to the Mindset Mutiny. I am your host, Mike Ivanov. Join me as we challenge the status quo, break free from self-imposed limits, and redefine what's possible. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Sunday night, 5:26 p.m. It's 13 degrees outside, and we're going to get this fucking thing done. But before we dive into today's episode, I want to start by being as transparent as possible. Stress is something that we all deal with. No one is immune to it. Not me, not you, not anyone. But we all face it in different ways. It doesn't matter how strong you are or how much you've accomplished. Stress can still hit like a freight train. So today I want to share some of the personal stressors that I've been facing. Not because I want sympathy, but because I believe there's a value in me sharing where I am struggling. This podcast isn't about pretending I have it all figured out. It's about growth, resilience, and pushing through the hard times. We're all in this fight together, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that being honest about what you're up against, that's the first step toward conquering it. So let's talk about how we rise above the stress that tries to hold us back. Right now, for me, I'm facing some of the most challenging stress I've had in a long time. Mentally, emotionally, and physically. Some of these stressors I've chosen, but I'm fucking feeling it. And I'm feeling it hard. Absolutely everything's a grind. Meal prepping, a grind. Doing the things I love, a grind. Running and lifting, a grind. Showing up, a fucking grind. Nothing is easy right now. Nothing. I'm smoked, and I'm flirting with burnout. Everything right now is requiring twice the effort. It's like every part of me is being tested at one time. It's a lonely place to be right now. But it's easy to make it all stop. I could just back off, lower my expectations, or quit. I hate this shit right now. But at the same time, I fucking love it. This is what progress feels like. This is what I'm always talking about. The tears are right around the corner. I will continue to push until they arrive. And when they do, I'm going to continue to push through them until they dry up. This is when most people give in to the quit. The quit means rest. It means being cozy. It means the pain stops. But it also means shutting the machine down. Risking losing the momentum we've worked so hard to build. The momentum that has taken so long to generate. Knowing what I know now, this is exactly when you keep your foot on the gas. This is when you dig in. And when energy is low, you become even more deliberate with your actions. Every ounce of effort has to count. Everything you do has to be calculated. Deviating from the plan is not an option. So, first for me is work. Work has been testing me. By the time you hear this, I'll be past this, but I have to share it. We're wrapping up at the year end. We're trying to hit the numbers we need for our investors. We're a publicly traded company now, so there's a whole nother level of stress there. We're working through next year's budgets, and we're navigating some hard personnel decisions that have unfortunately resulted in termination. Running the business, making the hard decisions is all good. But when it comes to parting ways with people, that can be stressful as fuck. You're changing the course of someone's life. Now, hopefully it's for the better. Maybe they'll learn something from it. But from a stress perspective, these events consume your entire body and mind. You go to bed, that's all you think about. You wake up thinking about it. You can feel your neck and your back tighten up. Your digestion is off and your mind runs in circles. These are the things you have to identify and push through. But that doesn't mean you can't talk about those feelings. It doesn't mean you can't recognize why you're feeling them. At the end of the day, you have to make good decisions for the team and hold that standard. And sometimes you have to remember you're only as strong as your weakest performer. These stresses are necessary. The shit gets hard. It just does. On a mental front, I'm maxing it out every day. Work, gym, diet, all that shit. But with work, I leave with my face hurting and my brain absolutely erect. But you can never let people see that. And for me, unfortunately, when I leave work, that's when the other work begins. My job, it's only one component of this journey. And I'm sure it's the same for you. Then there's the move. At the time I'm recording this, I'm packing my life up. Boxes and shit everywhere in the middle of the holiday season. I'm heading to a new place in a new town, leaving behind the home that I've grown comfortable in over the last few years. The very environment where I've had so much success. I'm happy and excited, but I'm also afraid. Moving sucks. No one likes it. Upsetting your life, dismantling your routine, and then rebuilding it somewhere else. It's fucking chaos. It's uncertain. You question all of it. But most importantly, it's extremely uncomfortable. And that's exactly why you push through it. So let me be clear on this one. I don't have to move. In fact, the place I lived in was perfect. It was actually a goal of mine to live there. When I moved in, I was very proud of myself. I worked very hard to get there. But here's the thing. I'm moving because I have an opportunity to get closer to my financial goals by making the sacrifice. Do I love the amenities and the oceanfront view? Yeah, of course I do. But is it getting me closer to my financial goals? Absolutely not. In fact, it's keeping me further away from them. I remind myself, you have to make short-term sacrifices to achieve long-term goals. Do I feel like I'm going backwards a little bit? Yeah, how can it not? You know? But that's my ego chirping at me. Sometimes you have to go back before you can take a giant leap forward. Sometimes a great stock drops before it skyrockets to the moon. This is the same thing in my mind. I'm pushing myself harder in the gym than ever before. I'm taking every movement to absolute failure. And my nervous system is completely fried. As a result, I'm falling off on my weekly running mileage. And to be frank, it's really pissing me the fuck off. I'm struggling because I'm underfueled and my system is overloaded. I'm 14 weeks into recording this podcast. I thought it looked easy from the outside. But I can assure you, once you're balls deep in it, it's everything but fucking easy. I'm so far outside my comfort zone on this shit, my mind keeps trying to run from it. I keep making it go back and live in that discomfort. And after all, that's why I fucking started this. Another challenge. I'm 5 weeks into eating in a calorie deficit. That's adding a whole other level of stress. Stress on the body, stress on the mind, stress on the emotions. But the stress has to happen for me to achieve my goal. Losing 10 pounds to reach my target weight of 200 by February. Why? Well, it's a great question. I ask myself why quite often. I want to give myself a six-pack for my birthday. and not a 6-pack of fucking beers. I figured that'd be the best gift I could ever give myself. Something that has been unachievable my entire life. 37 years, no 6-pack. It's something I never, ever believed was possible. So I'm suffering through the low calories, the lack of energy, the brain fog, and the overall lack of enjoyment. The list goes on. If you're still asking why, that's fair. I'm doing it to see if I can fucking do it. That's why. It's that simple. I want to see if I have the discipline to do it. It's a fucking test. See what you can do. Test yourself. That's the fucking point. If it was easy, it wouldn't be worth it. I always remind myself of that. This is uncharted territory for me. I'm demanding the most from my body and mind right now. And to top it off, I'm not feeding it. I'm purposely living in discomfort to achieve the goal. This is what it takes, and I'm not going to fail. This is what it takes to achieve anything. It takes a level of discipline that others don't want to enforce on themselves. So exercise some discipline and do what you've always dreamed of doing. That's my best advice. It's up to you. I can't do it for you. Now, staying focused when my brain feels like it's running on fumes has been incredibly difficult for me. Exhaustion has hit me very hard, and the things I usually love doing often don't even feel like an option some days. I'm getting 8 hours of sleep, but it's still not enough. I can feel my mind rioting against me. I feel the stress in my mind, my body, and my drive. Everything continues to require massive effort. Regardless, I know one truth I hold on to no matter what. This will pass. I will grow. The energy will come back. Sacrifice is necessary to hit goals. Mine's physical right now, so that's the priority. Nothing else matters. But even so, I can't back off on the other things. Even if I have almost nothing left to give, I'm still going to show up. When you think you have nothing more to give, you have two options. Give up or give everything. My vote is to give everything. When we think we have nothing more in us, when we think we've given everything, I can assure you that you've only scratched the surface. So dig deep, continue to give because you can, and continue to endure. The truth is, stress is inevitable. It's part of the journey. And while it's pushing me to my limits, it's not going to break me. That's why we're talking about stress today. Because mastering it is what we need to do to move forward. That's the difference between rising above and letting it crush you. So we need to be self-aware outside of our heads. Remember, our brains are separate from us. We get a vote. However, our brains know us very well. They know exactly how to work us to get what they want. The second you become aware of that and you realize that that's what the brain's doing, you hold the power to control it. With that said, my brain has an angle on me right now. It's that simple. It knows I'm tired. It knows my patience is thin. It knows I'm not feeding it enough. It senses an opportunity to get me to stop. It wants to stop. It's scared. It's being forced to do things it hasn't done before to this level. It's overwhelmed because I'm overwhelming it. I'm calling the fucking shots, not the bitch voice rattling around in my head. So this will be a little out there, but it really helps me. when I look at it this way. I think of me and my mind as separate entities, right? I, or me, I should say, wants to do all these things to the max. And I'm unwilling to bend on the non-negotiables. Hey, I might even a bit off more than I can chew. Totally a normal occurrence for me. Then there's my mind, right? And it's continually saying, fuck this. There's no way we can handle all this volume. So when it catches me feeling bad for myself, when it catches me saying I'm tired, when it catches me looking at my shoes, right, trying to convince myself to get outside and log some miles, or even better, when it catches me just sitting there in my car at the gym parking lot, willing myself to go in, that's when it takes a shot at me. When I'm at my most sensitive spot, that's when it takes a shot. The mind doesn't fight fair. In fact, it loves a sucker punch. In those moments, it whispers, back it off. Take a break. Let some things go. Forget about the podcast. You're too busy. It tells me I can't do it all. The mind loves to fuck you over. Remember that. It likes to try to limit you out of self-protection, and there are certainly days it can catch my ear. But I recognize it, and then I punish it. I make the mind do what it doesn't want to do. That's the win. Show it who's in charge. Make it bow down to you. And then I tell it out loud. If you're going to pull this shit, I'm going to make you do this all day. So quiet the fuck down and give me what I need to get the shit done. It's that simple. You do that, and the mind will quiet down for a bit. But remember what I've told you before. It's a chatty little bitch, and it will be back. So be ready for when it returns. The best thing we can do is start by understanding stress. Stress is a natural response. It's a signal from our body that something is happening. It triggers your fight, flight, or freeze instinct. This has been a part of our survival for thousands of years. However, in today's world, stress is often triggered not by life or death situations, but by responsibilities, expectations, and challenges in our daily lives. There's a big difference between stress that's temporary, like preparing for a big event, big speech, and then stress that sticks around for weeks or months. Temporary or acute stress can actually sharpen your focus and give you the energy to perform at your best. It's the kind of stress that pushes you to hit a deadline or prepares you for an important meeting. This kind of stress is manageable and often fades once the events are over. But then there's chronic stress, the kind that lingers and becomes part of your daily routine. Chronic stress isn't just draining, it's damaging. Over time, it wears you down mentally, leading to constant worry and anxiety. It impacts you emotionally, making you feel irritable, overwhelmed, or worst of all, disconnected from the things you love. And physically, it also takes a toll. It disrupts sleep. It spikes your cortisol levels, and it can even weaken your immune system. Now, this may take you by surprise, but stress itself isn't the problem. Stress is a neutral force. It's a signal. The real issue is in how we respond to it. Stress can be a motivator. It can fuel determination and growth. Or it can be the thing that holds us back, leading to that burnout and stagnation. The choice is on how we manage it. When you learn to recognize stress as an opportunity to adapt and grow, you take its power away. Instead of letting it control you, you take control of your response. That's the shift we need to make, and that's where everything begins to change. The reality is, when stress isn't managed, it starts to take over. It doesn't just slow you down, it grinds you to a halt. It wears you down physically, mentally, and emotionally, stripping away your energy, your focus, and your drive until you're just running on fumes. Burnout isn't simply feeling tired. It's the moment you lose touch with why you started in the first place. It's the moment you forgot why the fight matters. That's where I am right now. That's what I'm fighting through. So let's talk about the physical cost first. Stress doesn't just live in your head, it shows up in your physical body. That constant release of cortisol fucks you up. Tight muscles, headaches, poor digestion, elevated blood pressure, poor sleep. It's that feeling of waking up after a full night's rest and still being exhausted. It's going through your day with sore shoulders, a clenched jaw, and a nervous system that feels like it's fried. Left unchecked, physical stress will compound over time. Your body will pay the ultimate price. Then there's the mental toll. Stress fogs your brain. You can't think clearly. Decision making becomes harder, and you start second guessing everything. You forget things you'd normally remember. You sit at your desk staring at a task, and your mind just locks up. The frustration then builds, and you end up doing nothing, just spinning in your own mental chaos. And let's not forget the emotional cost. Stress will dim your fire. It zaps your passion for all the things you love. It makes you disengage from people and activities that matter most. You stop looking forward to the gym. You stop enjoying the run. You stop appreciating the process. In fact, you start to doubt the process altogether. The things that used to fuel you start feeling like another burden. It feels like you're carrying a weight on your chest, and no matter how much effort you give, you're not moving forward. But here's the worst part. Mismanaged stress doesn't just affect you. It affects the people around you. Your team will feel it. Your family feels it. The tension you carry spills into conversations, decisions, and relationships. You snap when you shouldn't. You withdraw when you need connection. Mismanaged stress creates collateral damage. The ultimate cause of that stress is burnout. Burnout is more than exhaustion, it's disconnection. It's waking up one day and realizing you don't care anymore. You don't care about the goals you set. You don't care about the progress you made. You don't care about the sacrifices you worked so hard for. You feel empty. Burnout robs you of purpose. And without purpose, you're done. You lose the fight before you even step into the ring. That's why recognizing and addressing stress is so fucking critical. You can't ignore it and hope it goes away. It won't. You can't push it down and pretend it's not there. Stress doesn't disappear on its own. It compounds, it multiplies, and it consumes everything in its path. But here's the good news. Stress is manageable. When you recognize it early, when you take action, you can stop it from spiraling. You can reclaim control before it owns you. The choice is yours. Let stress burn you out or use it to make you better. But you can't sit idle. Sitting still is just another way of giving up. The truth still is that stress doesn't care about you. It just is. It's on you to decide how you respond to it. You can let it break you, or you can use it to sharpen your edge. The cost of mismanaged stress is high, but the reward of managing it, that's where resilience is built. That's where growth happens. And that's where the strongest version of you is forged. Our normal stress responses are not always productive. Make sure to remember that. Our first reaction usually isn't the best reaction. Typically, when stress hits, most of us react instinctively. We lash out, we shut down, or we just spin in circles. We become irrational. We only see the impending doom. But what if you could pause, breathe, reflect, and then respond? What then? I need you to think about that. In the meantime, I have a story. I used to work for a guy who was absolutely fucking hard as hell. The guy would never, ever, ever seem rattled, no matter what the chaos was that was going on around him. Cool as a cucumber, always in control. I'll never forget what he taught me. So there were days when I'd be sitting at my desk, absolutely overwhelmed as fuck. You know the feeling. Like your brain is short-circuiting. You can't even think straight. He'd walk into my office, calm as ever, and say, "Hey, Mike, what's stressing you out?" So I'd look up, try to answer, but I couldn't. I'd look at him, start scrambling for words, and then everything in my head would just lock up. I couldn't even communicate what was wrong. He wouldn't get frustrated with me. Instead, he'd toss me a notebook and tell me, "Write it down, then come see me." So I'd sit there staring at the blank page. Sometimes I couldn't write anything, nothing. I'd just sit there, paralyzed, stressed as hell, but completely unable to put the mess in my head onto the paper. Other times, I'd manage to write down a few things. I'd take that notebook, head to his office, and we'd sit down. He kind of looked through what I wrote, and without fail, he'd start blowing holes in what I thought was stressing me out. He'd ask questions, poke at things, and in the process, he'd help me work through the noise. He wasn't solving my problems for me. He was showing me how to see them clearly. Here's what I learned from him. Step back. Analyze the stress. Write it down. When you get it out of your head and onto the paper, you take the power away from it. A problem you can see is a problem you can fight. When everything's bottled up in your head, it's like being stuck in a fog. You can't think clearly. You can't see. You can't find the solutions because you don't even know what you're up against. Writing it down is the first step in cutting through the chaos. But of course, it doesn't stop there. I like to zoom out when I'm in these situations. You have to remind yourself that the stress you feel today may not even come from today. It may not even come from this week. Stress can be cumulative, like we've talked about. It can build up over time. It could be something you buried a month ago or even longer, finally coming back to hit you. That's why zooming out is so important. When you zoom out, you start to see the trends. You start to see the bigger picture, the story of how you got there. You can connect the dots between what's happening now and what happened then. And once you understand the course that led you to this, you can make better decisions. Decisions that have a higher rate of return than the ones you make when you're just reacting in the moment. Stress will always have a way of blinding you. It will cloud your judgment, and even worse, sometimes you lie to yourself about what's really stressing you out. You tell yourself it's work, or it's the gym, or it's the people around you, but deep down, you know it's something else. But you won't acknowledge it. That lie is so fucking damaging. It traps you in a loop because you're not addressing the real issue. These are the 5 things you need to remember. Step back, write it down, zoom out, be honest, and make a move. Number 1, step back. Pause for a minute. Breathe. Pull yourself out of the chaos. Step away and settle yourself. Number 2, write it down. No matter how small or insignificant it feels, get it on paper. Get it out of your head. Writing it down brings clarity, and it helps you go on facts, not emotions. Number 3, zoom out. As we talked about before, look at the bigger picture. Is this stress new or is it old? Is it something you're carrying from weeks, months, or years ago? What does it look like from afar? Number 4, be honest. Do not lie to yourself. Call the stress for what it is. Face it head on. You have to be honest or you'll be dead in the water. Stop lying to yourself. Lying to yourself creates a whole other layer of stress. Trust me on that, would you? 5, make a move. So once you've done the work to understand it, act, execute. You can't sit in the stress. Move forward no matter what. The only way past the stress is directly through it. When you do this, stress loses its grip on you. You're no longer reacting blindly. You're responding with purpose. And that's the difference between letting stress own you and owning your stress. So the next time you feel like you're drowning in it, grab a notebook, write it down, zoom out, find the story, and then get back to work.